So, a couple of weeks ago, Sam Seder of the Majority Report had Ilhan Omar on her show. Sam and Emma Vigeland interviewed her. And understand something. Sam Seder is a fake leftist. Emma Vigeland is a fake leftist. And the reason they have on Democratic politicians, it's because they know, because in order to give them softball interviews and improve their public image. It's not to ask hard questions like real journalists do. So I'm gonna we're gonna watch certain parts of the interview in this video, and I'm gonna react to certain parts, and and you're gonna notice something. I'm gonna explain to you how Sam Seder is wrong about everything he says in this interview.
I want to welcome back to the program Representative Ilhan Omar of Minnesota's 5th Congressional District. Congresswoman, welcome back to the program.
Thank you so much for having me, Sam.
We got a bunch of stuff that we want to talk to you about, but let's start with student debt, because I know you're deeply involved in this. I think since the last time we spoke to you, well, it's certainly been since the last time we spoke to you. I'm sure you're aware, President Biden found it. I mean, I think the last time we spoke, we were asking where the memo was from the Department of Education. I don't even know if it's that. They found it, and it turns out he can do it, and he did it at least to some degree. $10,000 for everyone making under $125,000 as an individual, $250 for.
So that is false. That was not Joe Biden's campaign promise. It wasn't $10,000, just simply $10,000 for those making under $125,000 a year. It was everyone making $125,000 a year gets all their student debt canceled if they go to a public university or an HBCU. So, no, Joe Biden did not keep their promise, so that is dishonest. You'd think that a guy like Sam would do his research and know that. Let's continue.
A couple, 20,000 if you were the recipient of a Pell Grant. I have a sense, I know the answer to this question, but what do you think about that debt relief?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I've been a champion in trying to get complete student debt cancellation, but this is significant. 43 million of the 45 million who have student debt will feel some relief. 20 million of those will have their student debt wiped out. And so, the day that it was announced, I was getting text messages from people who in my district who've been part of that movement, who've been campaigning alongside me to try to get student debt cancellation in tears, because, the amount of debt that they had would ultimately be canceled by the time this is processed. So we are grateful that the President did find the memo. That he did carry out the promise he made to me end of March when I met with him in the White House, that he will move some sort of student debt cancellation, and ultimately did keep his campaign promise.
Do you think that's the end of it? I mean, because I have to, or let me ask you a subsidiary question. Do you think they were surprised at how little pushback there was? I mean, it seemed like...
And that is also incorrect. There was pushback. There was pushback. There's a right-wing attorney general that wants to sue the government in the Southern District of Indiana, and he eventually wants to take the case to the Supreme Court. He doesn't want student debt cancellation to happen. There is pushback. Now, I'm in favor of student debt cancellation, but a lot of voters are not. For example, certain people who are conservatives, certain people who already paid back their student loans, think, how come these people get their student loan paid back while I already paid mine back? I mean, I would answer those people by saying, I think you should have reparations. I think you should be paid back what you had to pay in student loans. But the point is that, back to my point, there is pushback against this, and in not acting like there isn't, the majority report is painting a dishonest picture of what is going on.
Like it was a story in the news for, I don't know, 36 hours, 48 hours. Obviously, it helped him in the polls. I mean, I think there's like direct evidence of that, that his approval rating went up, particularly amongst young people. It's probably going to help the Democrats writ large in November. But
it's not going to help them in November in the midterms, because young people, they don't show up to vote in the midterms. They show up in the presidential election. And Chuck Schumer even admitted that. He's worried that even with Roe v. Wade getting overturned, which will probably give the Democrats a boost, that the Democrats are going to lose the Senate. So, again, dishonest.
But in terms of pushback, it seemed to have gone away. Like, there was Ted Cruz went out there and said, why are we giving basket weavers, majors? And then they realized, like, oh my God, it turns out there's 45 million basket weavers in this country. Maybe we shouldn't be doing this. Like, do you think they were, A, surprised by the lack of pushback, and B, do you have a sense that, like, there's going to be a sequel?
So I don't know if the White House itself was surprised. I think they've been clearly paying attention to the polls and knew that this was significantly going to be helpful to the president and to the Democrats in general going into this midterms. But I know that some of our colleagues in Congress who said, this would be the end of us, were surprised that there was a minimal pushback, and that the talking points that the Republicans had ultimately fell apart. Now, the only thing that they have left to say is that we've taken away their recruitment tool for recruiting for the military, which is the most ridiculously obvious.
I mean, it's probably true a little bit.
Yeah,
but that's not.
You're not supposed to say it. You shouldn't say that. Yeah.
Say that out loud, and they're telling them themselves. And I think that response in itself is helpful to us, because what we are recognizing, I think, as Democrats collectively, including the president and the administration, is that when we do the right thing in helping working people in this country and the working poor, that those policies really do impact the election, get people on our side. And it is not okay for always to make promises to people and fall short on those promises. And this is, this has to usher.
You want to talk about breaking promises, Ilhan Omar? I mean, you said you supported defunding the police. You just voted in favor of a bill that is funding the police. You said you supported Medicare for all, but you didn't want to do force the vote. If you want to talk about being on the moral right side of things, you should have done force the vote. Instead, you had to smear people who are real leftists, people like Jimmy Dore, as being right-wingers for supporting force the vote. There's just one part of this interview that I'd like to highlight, and then I'd like to say some other stuff, but just let me a second to look for it.
Has the votes and wants to give her colleagues the time and the ability to come to that decision.
I have some more questions about legislation. But
yeah, Ilhan wants to. They talk about doing supporting gay marriage in this clip, like having to force a vote on gay marriage, and it's just funny to me because she didn't want to force a vote on Medicare for all. It's so hypocritical.
But first, I want to just ask about the nurses' strike. Minnesota saw the largest strike of private nurses, I think, in the country.
Ever.
In the country ever.
He said, I think in the country. You don't know, Sam?
Last week? Yes. Okay. And 14 to 15,000 nurses went on strike for 3 days. Give us a sense of, like, where things stand with that, and what kind of support there was for the nurses there, because this feels like part of a burgeoning sort of reemergence of labor's understanding of their power.
Yeah, having 15,000 nurses go on strike, it was historic and significant. I think it does have a clear impact on the labor movement. Right now, that power was recognized by executives in the healthcare industry in Minnesota. So they are re-entering negotiations. I hope that they carry out those negotiations in good faith and that nurses get what they are owed. These are people who, without them, the healthcare system wouldn't work. Without them, patients wouldn't get the care that they need. And without them, I don't know where many of us would be when we show up to see care. And so the level of support from all levels of power in Minnesota was tremendous. We had myself, the governor, almost every single person, on the Democrat side, obviously, who holds office, come out on the picket line with them. As someone who's been part of a union who went on strike a few times, I don't remember us receiving that level of significant support. And so I know it made the nurses feel really good that every single person was out there supporting them.
What's the sense in the general population? Because, I mean, it's a slightly different dynamic. But I just remember, maybe we had a subway strike here, or a buses strike. When was it? Like maybe 8 years ago, 10 years ago.
Listen to Sam talking there. You can tell. He said we had a subway strike. Was it 8 years ago? You can tell. You can tell. The fact of the matter is, Sam Seder doesn't do research, and when Jackson Hinkle debated that, Jackson was able to expose that. Remember this?
About when she voted to increase the Capitol Police and Security budget to $1.9 billion increase.
I didn't take issue with her specifically, but I said that vote was wrong.
So,
but I really care.
Okay, Sam, there's one more thing I want to say here.
You're listing off every single time I haven't criticized AOC over the past.
Well, the question is why?
Childish. Well, I've made it quite clear. I don't care.
You don't care about what?
There you go. Sam doesn't care. He wants to smear. He always likes to say Jimmy Dore doesn't read anything. Oh yeah, well, the fact of the matter is, Jimmy Dore does do his research. Sam Seder does not do his research. Sam Seder does not read anything. Sam doesn't care. Sam doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about the working class. He doesn't care about imperialism around the world. He doesn't care. You shouldn't listen to him. You see how this works? Sam and Emma, the reason why they had Ilhan Omar on is because they wanted to be friendly with Democratic politicians. They didn't want to actually be good journalists that ask good questions. They wanted to get Ilhan Omar's access. And that's why the sort of people who get hired at MSNBC get paid by the DNC, like Sam Seder and Emma Vigeland. They want to be friendly with politicians and get their access. They're friendly with the Squad. They're friendly with the Squad, and the Squad people like Ilhan Omar are friendly with people like Nancy Pelosi. You're never gonna see people like Ilhan Omar and AOC want to engage with real leftists like Jimmy Dore and Jackson Hinkle. People who are actually gonna hold them accountable because they're fake leftists and they're frauds. So it's a big club and you ain't in it. There you have it.